So welcome everyone to Body and Soul, Healing and Understanding in this Lifetime. We want to thank Dr. Eleanor Gudis for sponsoring this class and the subsequent classes that we'll be doing in this series, God willing, as well as we want to thank her for her previous support of the Radiant Torah, which we did and completed, Baruch Hashem, the Parshas. And also may it be a source of merit for her, for good health and long life for her and her family. And for anyone who would like for us to keep in mind for Refuah Shlema, please feel free to open your chat and type in the names. And this learning is dedicated to them as well. Today we're going to still focus on healing in general and bring in more of the introduction. And we're going to really start off once again with your requests. Now, even though I have on my YouTube channel the video on the soul and the four elements, excuse me, I still have my sore throat. Even though I have that on my channel, I was asked to continue and go over them with a slightly different approach, and I'm going to do that. Now, one of the things that we're going to notice today is that the number 4 comes up a lot. And the number 4, as really all numbers have a significance in Judaism, but the number 4 is a special number that is definitely related to health and to categories of body-soul related healing. And the gematria of the letter Dalet is 4. We know Dalet also means a door. So please, Hashem, let us open the door to good health and healing from anyone who needs it, for anyone who needs it. Now, 4 represents the matriarchs, the Arba Imahos, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. And it also represents the 4 created worlds, which we've spoken about in the past. We've actually spoke about them last week, Atzilus, Beria, Yetzirah, and Asiya. And it also represents the 4 cups of wine, the 4 children, and the 4 questions of Pesach. 4 is very important to Pesach. And these categories of 4 in Pesach are related to the idea of Gaula. So there are 4 expressions of Gaula, of redemption, in the Torah. When Hashem took the Jewish people out of Egypt, he said, I will take you out. That's expression number 1. He said, I will save you. And he said, I will redeem you. And then finally, he said, I will take you to me as a nation. So the first 3 expressions represent the intervention of Hashem. We were passive. We were being acted upon by Hashem with, I will take you out, I will save you, I will redeem you. But the fourth aspect of this, which is, I will take you to me as a people, as a nation, this actually is a requirement from us. It represents a requirement from us. We can no longer be passive, because when Hashem takes us to him as his people, that involves a covenant, a marriage, a relationship. We are Hashem's people. We are his beloved people. And we have been given by Hashem a path of service to Hashem, a path of personal growth and development, and a relationship that we can choose to work on, to polish, and so on, or not, chas v'shalom, as the case may be. So the number 4 is extremely important. And I have really, when I began to think about all the 4s we were going to be discussing today, I began to think about this last 4 of the redemption and the fact that 4 really does represent a doorway, this Dalet, this letter Dalet, and it represents us opening the door to our own healing, so to speak. Now we know that Hashem is the Rofe, he's the healer, he's the doctor, of course, not a question, but he demands something of us as well, rather than just submit and be passive. Okay, so what I'd like to give as an example to this very quickly is the example of eating. We'll get way more into eating when we get to the class on the digestive system and eating and food. But what we have to understand about eating is that we have a responsibility to eat healthy, for sure. That's certainly a responsibility. We have to take care of our bodies first. We have a responsibility to eat in a way that Hashem has told us that Jews must eat. We must eat kosher. We must make blessings on the food. And we also have a responsibility to put the idea of eating in proportion to everything else we're doing. As women, especially, most of us are mostly responsible for the cooking, the food preparation, or the food buying, and so on that goes on in our home. And we must understand that this represents an action that we are taking in this 4th level of redemption. Now, Reb Noson has a very powerful, deep, and beautiful lesson in Likutei Halachos on this, which I'm not going to go over today. It's very complicated, but what I can say that he says is that when a Jew eats and he comes into a contact with the sparks in his food, okay, whether it's the sparks of mineral, vegetable, or animal matter in his food, because all food falls into those 3 categories, and we'll talk about those categories in a moment, he has the power, she has the power to raise up those sparks. When we prepare our food, when we make sure our food is kosher, when we take the portion of challah, when we're making challah, we take the challah from the dough and we burn it, when we serve the food in an appropriate way for appropriate times, for Shabbat, of course, we're going to have oneg Shabbat, we're going to have a delightful Shabbat, which requires us to make special foods as much as possible. And all these different things that we're very busy and involved in have the power to elevate all the sparks of creation that are in this food. When you go into the store and you pick up a container of yogurt and you look at it to make sure it has the hechsher, the kosher supervision, that's correct, okay? That's a good kosher supervision, and you bring that into your home and you give that to your family or you eat it yourself, you have begun this process of elevating all the other life forms that are contained in that food. So I want to talk about the life forms. Now, there are 4 basic life forms. There are created life forms. Okay, we're not going to talk about angels, which are sort of a life form. We're going to talk about domem, which is the mineral world. Okay, someach, which is the plant world. Okay, chai, which is the animals, or chayot, okay, the animals, and midaber, which are human beings, the speakers. The 3 other life forms that we find in nature, okay, they're the natural world, so to speak, okay, we are here to make tikkunim on them, to rectify them. Now, There's a still trendy today. I don't know how much this sort of New Age Judaism is using this term Tikkun Olam, but the idea that they represent it as is as, you know, protecting nature and the ecology and so on, and not polluting, and for many people that means being vegetarian and so on and so forth. Now, that there's nothing wrong with certainly taking care and not polluting, and all this is very important, but this is not what is meant by performing a tikkun on the world, and it's not what is meant by elevating the sparks of this world. We have a very specific stewardship. Our stewardship, okay, as much as we would like to think our stewardship, by we, I mean the world at large, the secular world at large for sure, is to take care of the earth and the planet and so on. And again, it's important. I don't want you to think I'm not saying it's important to treat every life form, plant and animal, and even mineral with respect, okay, because it is a type of life form. It's just a domain is a silent or a mute or a dumb life form, or creation, I should say. When what we are charged with is preparing and making use of all the life forms, okay, which in the case of food, which I just mentioned, generally involves ingesting them, making a blessing on them and ingesting them, okay, and using the energy that we gain from them, using that energy to come closer to Hashem, to serve Hashem, to fill our life with Torah and mitzvahs. So we have this is part of our priestly duties, actually, and you notice that the woman's primarily in charge of this, okay. And when I think about this, I don't know if it's a chiddush, it's just a connection that I came to the Arba Imahot, as I mentioned. I think about women being very involved with this process of choosing, nurturing, sifting, working on, and so on. And we know that that is part of the feminine aspect of life, which the male aspect is the go out and get it and bring it home. And the feminine aspect is to sift and choose and build and nurture and make something out of what she has received. So as women, one of the reasons that taking care of food, excuse me, taking care of food and food preparation and making sure the family is nourished and making sure Shabbat and the Yom Tovim are celebrated with delight and festivity, one of the reasons is because this is a very feminine process, okay? This is what women do, and this is what our bodies do. We take in and we nurture, and a baby develops inside our bodies, which are made for nurturing, and then we give birth and a child is born. And this is a reflection very much of our actual general mission in this world. We all have our own personal missions as well. Excuse me. So I don't want to get too philosophical, but I would like to just add something else that Reb Noson says in his, I'm going to go back to Likutei Halachos for 1 minute. He says that through the process of eating, okay, a person can praise Hashem. As it says in Yol, and you shall eat, and you shall praise the name of Hashem. So when a person takes all these different facets of creation and eats them in a proper manner, he raises up creation to the level of the top category, which I mentioned to you is midaber, a speaker, a human being, through the function of speech, which is to make those blessings. He raises up the food that he's ingested in all those worlds to the level of midaber, the highest level of created life form. Now, I want to go back to the yogurt a moment. Okay, I'm not saying you should eat yogurt or not eat yogurt. it's your choice. It's for some people it's good, some not. I just want to give you an example of what I mean by the 4 life forms. I see Naomi is signed in. So Naomi, I am going to make you co-host. Thank you. Okay. So this idea of these 4 life forms, let's just start with mineral and yogurt, because everything is found in everything. So a yogurt is made from it really is pertaining to the animal life form in that it's a product of, let's say, cow or goat or sheep. And the cow is eating the grass, okay? And the grass is the tzomeach, the plant life. The grass is grown in the earth and is nourished by the minerals in the earth. And you might be interested to know that cows and chickens, when chickens peck at the earth and when a cow eats the grass, they also are ingesting the earth as well, okay? And they're ingesting the insects in the earth. So what comes out of the cow is milk, okay, let alone a steak, is a product of all the lower life forms, okay? This is quite fascinating that we think of meat and dairy and so on and parv, and those are halachic categories, but really almost anything of a higher order that we're going to ingest contains something, especially in the animal foods, contains the lower life forms, okay? So animal food will contain the plant and the mineral, the plant will contain the plant and the mineral will contain the mineral, okay? We don't just generally eat minerals. So anyway, this again represents our priesthood, our stewardship, our tikkun for the world. This is Jewish ecology 101, okay? This is why it's one of the reasons why it's so important that we really begin to learn what it means to eat like a Jew. And Reb Noson again has more on this about being a midaber and how we elevate these sparks. If you're interested, I can send you the section. I don't actually have it digitally, but I can send you the information, the source where you can look it up. Okay, now we talked about the 4 creative life forms. Now what we're going to do is we're going to briefly talk about the 4 humors. I want to start with that. I have a million pages in front of me, so I appreciate you bearing with me. Hold on, if I can't find it, we'll do them next. Okay. Where are the 4? Okay. The 4 humors. So you may have heard this term. It sounds like a medieval term because it probably is. And once we're getting into these 4 areas that we're going to discuss today, the 4 elements and the 4 humors, what I'd like you to keep in mind is that these are more, in a way, Eastern in their sensibilities than they are Western in their sensibilities. So anybody who's studied TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, knows that in traditional Chinese medicine, when you describe an organ, you're really describing a process. Or when you're describing the 5 elements in the TCM, or I'm not trying to do a compare and contrast, but I know many of you know about this. When you have that, you're also not describing the literal element as much as you're describing the attributes of the element. So suffice it to say that Torah is the root of all of this, and that the West has one view of how the body functions, and the East has another. And Torah really encompasses all these views because everything was taken from really all our understanding of how the human body functions. But in some ways, the Torah view tends to be quite Eastern. Unless you're going to Rambam, then it's a bit different. So what I would like to tell you is about these 4 categories. And of course, that's the wrong page. Okay. So these four categories correspond to four colors. All right. The first color is white, and this corresponds to the lymph system, the glands. Very important. Now, today, certainly I would say in the past 30, 40 years, I don't even want to say the term. I don't like to, of course, say the negative names of diseases, but there have been very bad diseases of the lymph system. And as we go through the entire course, we'll begin to understand why certain social movements, personal movements, cultural movements might lead to imbalances in these areas that might lead to, God forbid, dis-ease, unease, instability in an area. So white is the lymph system. Red, which represents blood, is the liver. Okay. Green represents bile of the gallbladder, and black is bile of the spleen. Okay. And again, we'll go through, we'll cover these organs, and we'll learn more about them. Today, we're giving an overview of the actual humors and elements and life forms. Now, there is a Western perception that these are actual liquids and systems, and that is true. At the same time, these are representative of processes and attributes, and that is true as well. So we have to keep this in mind, that we can look at it literally if we want to. It's far more comprehensive to look at it as something that moves in between the literal and the metaphorical. Okay, and for our purposes today, you'll see why. So that's just the overview of that. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to discuss the four elements, and we're going to discuss a fifth element as well. So the four elements are fire, air, water, and earth. They're called the yesodos, which means foundations. An element means foundation. That's actually what it means. It just is something that you can't break down anymore. And when we refer to fire, air, water, and earth, okay, we are not referring necessarily to their physical counterparts. Okay. And what we have to understand is that these four elements have been written about extensively by various tzaddikim. And the idea that they have used these as a model, along with the humors, which I just mentioned, as a model for understanding ourselves. Now, it's a very interesting conversation with someone, and couldn't have a more hashgacha pratis than this. I was speaking with someone who's struggling with a character attribute. It's very hard for her. And she's struggling with a character attribute that's likened to fire, comes from the fire element, and this is a temper. I can say this because I know, because I have my own temper. So anyway, she's struggling with this, and she and I were having this conversation. She was saying, I don't understand. She said, I'm Shomer Shabbat, I keep kosher, I do everything right. You know, meaning she works very hard at making sure that she's following the Torah that she's been taught. She said, what is this? Why is this so important? Where does it say in the Torah, where does it say, correct your character attributes? And the truth is, it doesn't actually directly say this. If you look at the 613 mitzvot, okay, it doesn't say, open your heart and be generous. It might say give, but it doesn't say it doesn't get inside your head and your heart and necessarily tell you how you should feel emotionally and how your behavior should be tied in with your emotions. And why this is important, to the four humors that I just mentioned, which are very obviously linked to our health. I mean, I don't have to spell that out. So she wanted an answer, and I didn't have an answer, because the answer really is that with a more careful reading of, forget all the Musar Sfarim and forget even the Breslov Sfarim for now, with a careful reading of the mitzvot, you can see that there is almost an assumption that all of this comes from character. Now, we know, taught, that when a person does a mitzvah, let's say a person gives tzedakah, you can give it tzedakah because you're forced to, because it's the commandment. You have to give your 10 or 20%. That's it. You're going to do it. Or you can give your tzedakah by aligning your heart to Hashem's will. Now, we know that if you put two people together, they see someone on the street who's down and out, needs money, and one person rushes over because she's so moved at this person's plight. So my heart's so open to you, and she's genuinely feeling very kindly towards this poor person. She has money in her purse. She gives this person money. She goes away with a feeling of satisfaction. That's very good. There's nothing wrong with that. She's to be commended. However, the person who goes over to this person, because it's a mitzvah to give this person tzedakah, let's just assume that this is in the right situation. We'll talk about the details. It's a mitzvah to give tzedakah to this person, this fellow Jew who's down and out, lying on the street, homeless and broke. Okay. And the person really doesn't want to give the money. She really doesn't. She says, well, I would really rather go to the bakery and buy a fancier cake for Shabbos, and I'd rather give money to a different kind of tzedakah that maybe will bring me more honor and respect. But she subdues her own emotions to align herself as much as possible internally with what Hashem wills, maybe even not aligning herself, maybe even doing it with slight resentment that she knows this is the right thing. I'm going to do it, she says. That's a higher fulfillment of the mitzvah than someone who just rushes over out of the goodness of her heart. Why? How is this possible? Isn't one person a better person than the other? Doesn't make sense. So to have this conversation, what we have to do is understand that when we submit to Hashem's will, and the highest possible way is to bring your heart along to the mitzvah, okay, not just do it because you have a good heart, but you know it's a mitzvah, you're going to do the mitzvah anyway, and you're going to bring your heart into it. That's the highest possible way. But even just submitting to the mitzvah because it's what Hashem commands is higher than just doing something because you feel like it occasionally. It's a very hard concept to grasp for many people, because we've been taught this is what a good person is. This is what a not good person is. A good person is a good heart. Look, this person, they're so moved. They're so helpful. We see in the Torah that Hashem gives us many, many, many different types of mitzvot to do. And if we pay attention to them, we will see, and we're going to talk about them, as I mentioned before, about what Rav Azikri wrote in his, or Azkari, it's pronounced two ways, depending where the vowels are, in his Sefer Haredim. We spoke about it previously, how each part of the body and each emotion aligns with a mitzvah. As a matter of fact, each mitzvah is a healing path for the body. Because once we assume that we've done this mitzvah, we've done it fully and correctly with a connection to it, with a willingness, a desire to align our, not just the actions of the mitzvah, but our internal emotions of the mitzvah with Hashem's will. Once we've done that, we've opened up the possibility of healing whatever needs to be healed, healing that pipeline connected to the mitzvah. Okay, as we mentioned before, previous classes, each mitzvah is connected to a different organ or vein or artery of the body. And each mitzvah gives life force to the body. Now, I want to talk briefly about kares or karet, cutting off. This was a question I had last week, and it's very relevant here. There's this very fearsome thing called karet, where somebody is said to be cut off from life, cut off from Hashem, God forbid, chas v'shalom. It might mean a physical death. It might just mean a walking, living death, chas v'shalom, God forbid. We wish that on anyone. And it comes from repeatedly and willfully turning one's back on the mitzvot. I'm not talking about people who don't know all the mitzvot and are learning the mitzvot and are growing. And I'm talking about people who just know that it's real, believe in Hashem, and they turn their back. So what is this? So what we have to understand is that each mitzvah, each of the 613, is a strand in a giant multiple braid, a multi-level braid. And so kare usually just applies to one of those strands. Unfortunately, in this lifetime, many of us have a strand or two or three or four that are very frayed. F-R-A-Y-D, not F-R-A-Y-E-D, not afraid, frayed, worn out, maybe just hanging by a thread, so to speak. And we can actually, even with kare to a certain extent, we can actually do a lot of repair work. And by repairing our relationship to the mitzvot and learning and growing at our own pace, okay, the pace that's right for each of us. Everybody has their own inner work to do. Nobody's like anyone else. Everybody's different. Everyone's an olam. We will have achieved a tikkun olam, meaning a correction, a rectification, and a healing for our own wounds, our own personal self. And Rebbe Nachman says very significantly, very importantly, it just, baseline to keep in mind is the main ingredient to do all this work is joy. Joy is essential. It's not a byproduct. It's not something that we do this, then we feel joyful, although that could happen. The joy that we ourselves churn up inside ourselves in order to get this busy life work done and this healing done, this joy builds and builds and builds. It reflects back on itself. It snowballs, so to speak. And this is the ultimate cure. And as we go through the elements, we'll speak more about the importance of joy. Okay. Now, I'd like to briefly mention that the fifth element, okay, the fifth element, we're going to talk about the four elements because that's what there really are, but there's a fifth element that Reb Noson speaks about. In Breslov, the fifth element is the concept of their connection to the tzaddik, okay? So the tzaddik who teaches us how to do all this work with joy, I'm really oversimplifying on the one hand, and on the other hand, that's really the baseline truth. If we do all this work with joy, that we've learned this from the tzaddik, we have a connection with the tzaddik, and by the tzaddik, I do mean Rebbe Nachman, but I also mean the concept of the tzaddikim. When we learn from the tzaddikim how to do this work with joy, that represents the source that's going to infuse life in all our four elements. Okay, so it's important. It's important to keep this in mind. Now, I'm going to briefly tell you that if you would like some English sources for all this work, you can get Anatomy of the Soul from Breslov Research Institute. You can get Wings of the Sun by Rabbi Avraham Greenbaum. You can get in English, if you like in English, it's also in Hebrew, the work on the Yesodot, on the elements by Rav Itamar Schwartz, which represents another way of looking at these. He does a synthesis of Breslov Chabad and sort of the Yerushalmi world. yeshivish world. There are many ways to look at this. I am going to begin with the elements, not necessarily as represented by Chaim Vital in this case. He starts with fire, air, water, and earth. I'm going to start with earth. And what we're going to talk about briefly is the good and bad aspects of the elements. And then when we go on more through the body, we'll talk about how they connect with the aspects of the body, the humors that I mentioned, and so on. So let's start with earth. Okay. So earth is literally the heaviest of the elements. Okay. It represents the animal world. And the earth is, when it's balanced, it represents a kind of stability, a kind of nurturing stability. So we have to have this quality, this attribute of earth in us, but it can also represents, when it's unbalanced, a couple of things. One is depression, and the other is, I'm going to call it like it is, laziness. A nice politically correct way of saying that would be feeling stuck. Okay. Sometimes laziness really is laziness. As somebody, by the way, who likes nothing more than to daydream and lie on the sofa, I can speak about myself here. Laziness, okay, really can be an inability to really find focus and get moving. So earth is a kind of stuckness. And so picture in your head quicksand, and psychospiritual quicksand, emotional and spiritual quicksand, something that holds you down, something that's heavy. And somebody who has an imbalance of earth, okay, is always going to be grumbling and is always going to think that they're suffering more than anyone else, and they're never going to be satisfied with what they have. That is one of the external expressions of an imbalance of earth. Okay. We know people who seem to have it all and they're still stuck. They're miserable, but they have everything. What's the problem? The problem is this imbalance. The real obvious answer to earth's imbalance is immediately joy. Okay. It's so obvious. Joy is going to animate that stuck feeling, and it's going to lift up the person in order that they can get moving, that they can break that feeling of stuckness. Now, I want to tell you that we all go through imbalances in our four elements at some point or another in our lives. This isn't something that you have to remain stuck in. Okay. It doesn't mean you're always going to be stuck in earth. Okay. What it means is we have points and times where we're out of whack, so to speak. If we pay attention to what's going on in our bodies and our health, it's not that the health issue precedes the elemental imbalance. Very often, if you're perspicacious and you pay attention and you do a good analysis and you talk in Hitbodedut to Hashem about this, you will figure out that the stuckness in one kind of element, or the imbalance, in one kind of element, came about before the physical imbalance. Okay. So these imbalances in the elements affect the four humors, the different humors of the body. They affect the health of the body. And they're, of course, impossible to pull out from the health of the mind and the soul and the emotions. So the reason why I started with earth, which is what Rav Schwartz does, because I think it's valuable here, because I think for a lot of people, from what I see, a lot of people, depression is, Rabbi Nachman speaks very much about depression, is one of the, is the worst. It's just the worst epidemic there is. It's worse than any pandemic. Okay. These feelings of, I'm stuck. What do? I have nowhere to turn. I can't move. I'll just give up and lie on the sofa and daydream. Okay. This feeling of depression and stuckness, okay, we might think it's because of a chemical imbalance. We might think it's because of something else, because of a poor diet, whatever it is, whatever model you want to use to look at it. But ultimately, it comes from not infusing ourselves with joy. The antidote to fixing your earth is joy. Again, we're not able to go into great detail about this because you could have a few hours on each element. If again, I mentioned the reading to you, if you want to use those sources in English or Hebrew, if you didn't catch them all, let me know, text me, I'll send them to you. So the idea is that Earth is where we're starting because it's the one beneath us. It's the one we most fall down to. It's the lowest one, and everything goes to gravity. The next element that we're going to go over briefly is water. So I'm going the opposite of Rabbi Chaim Vital's, okay? He goes fire, air, water, earth. He goes from lightest to heaviest. I'm going from heaviest to lightest. Okay, so when we speak about water, water is the element of desire and pleasure. Okay, water is where all our cravings and lusts are rooted in, whether it's food, whether it's a craving for honor, whether it's a craving for material comfort, whether it's immorality, it doesn't matter. Okay, these are all rooted in water. And if you look, it's summertime. You look outside. If you don't look, but if you wanted to look, you could. There's such a phenomenon called spring break. We should never know from this horrible thing where people go down to the beach and act like animals. Okay, unfortunately. And this comes from the element of water, and it happens by the water. And if you look at a lot of the centers of immorality, sexual immorality in the world, okay, we know a lot of them are located on islands, are located near the beach, and so on. And it's not an accident. There's a reason for it. That element is represented physically for the negative spiritual phenomenon that takes place. So water is a craving for pleasure, and we all need to have pleasure in life. Everybody needs pleasure, okay? We are not like other religions, which believe you have to, whip yourself and torture yourself and suffer. And no, okay, we should have pleasure in life. We should enjoy life. But we have to know how to use our pleasures properly and what they're there for, okay? We shouldn't leave Hashem out of our pleasures. So if you're going on a wonderful nature walk, I'll tell you, yesterday I had an appointment. I had to go to Brighton Beach for a certain appointment. I don't get to Brighton Beach very often, but I had this appointment and I suddenly realized I'm near the ocean. Isn't this great? I haven't been to the ocean in 2 years. I don't live all that far away. It's just the way things have worked out. I haven't gotten there. And I said, I can walk 10 minutes, go over to the ocean, okay, and make the bracha on the ocean. So I got pleasure, genuine human, physical pleasure from seeing the ocean, breathing in that salty, yummy air. And at the same time, I was able to connect that to the main motivation, which I really don't know if it was my first motivation, I'll be honest, but I made it my priority to make that blessing. And therefore, I joined those two together. It's a very simple, obvious thing, and you can do that for yourself as well, okay? To always join our pleasures to something holy. It's not that hard to do. Certainly with food, it's easy to do. As I mentioned in the beginning, you're making the blessing, you're serving it on Shabbat, and so on. Now, water also causes some other negative emotional phenomena. Those are jealousy and envy. Okay, this to me is the craziest. I can't even understand because, hey, listen, if you have emunah in Hashem and you have bitachon in Hashem, faith and trust in Hashem, whatever you have is for you. It's designed by Hashem. And what someone else has is for them and is designed by Hashem. They need their husband, They need their house, they need their money, they need their honor, whatever it is. Okay. So to look and think, well, that person has it all and I want it. Okay. This comes from an imbalance of water. Okay. And this can lead, says Rabbi Chaim Vital, to being dishonest, to lying, and to theft. Okay. To manipulating systems to get what you want. Okay. Okay. So there is a question. I'm going to attempt to answer it. How does this affect you if you live near water? So you live near water. Isn't that great? What a wonderful thing. So you can do many, many mitzvahs around the water. You can go make your hitbodedut out of doors, like Rebbe Nachman says, and enjoy the ocean air. Okay. You can make the bracha on the ocean as appropriate. It shouldn't affect you unless you're in one of those places where you're seeing all this stuff going on, the spring break type of stuff. Okay, then it can have a negative detrimental effect on you, which is why usually if I do go to the ocean, I usually go in the winter when that kind of stuff isn't going on. Okay, even here in Brooklyn, that stuff goes on. So the idea is that use the water. The water is just like everything else. All these animals have a potential positive and a potential negative. Pleasure in life can lead to joy in life. Healthy pleasures. There's nothing wrong with it. Okay. You don't have to deny yourself. Okay. Just know when you're veering over the line. Okay. I don't know if that answered your question. Oh, that was a direct message. It was to everyone. Everyone saw. Okay. Let me see. Okay. Next, air. So an imbalance. Okay, so air is necessary. Air is necessary because we need to breathe and we need to talk. And as women especially, we need to talk. It says that we were given 9/10 of speech. 9 parts of speech is ours. We're talkers. We're communicators. This is what we do. We express ourselves. However, there's a danger in that. There's something called idle chatter. There's a point in which we talk to hear ourselves talk. Okay. And this talking to hear ourselves talk for many women, okay, especially during those lockdowns, was so pervasive and intense that the phone and the Zoom were a lifeline even above and beyond what was necessary. Because for women, we like to articulate our experiences. Men don't so much. To get a man talking about what he's really feeling, not so easy to do. Okay, but many women like to talk about this stuff. So air can be the source of just talking and talking and talking to the point where there's no point in it. And the tendency to speak about useless subjects. I mentioned last time that even fashion doesn't have to be a useless subject. Even clothing doesn't have to be a useless subject. Anything can be linked to a mitzvah. You know, inside, each of you has your own personal barometer that knows when you're crossing your own boundary, your own line. Everybody has their own line. Okay. Am I chatting just to chatter? God forbid, to gossip? God forbid. Or am I talking to make a point, to reveal Hashem's glory in this world, to have a pleasurable conversation with somebody? There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Each of us has to know. The way to know this, okay, the way to be balanced in speech, one of the ways is to first learn what's permitted and what's not. Very, very important. Okay, so some people are really into learning Shmiras Halashon, guarding their speech. And some people are not into it. They don't want to know from it because they're afraid if I open up that door, as the line I've heard it a million times, I'll never be able to speak again. I won't be able to speak. That's just not true. Okay. It's just that you will have built a vessel for your speech that contains your speech, elevates your speech, and rectifies, heals this aspect of air. Now, what is forbidden speech? So we all know gossip about someone, whether it's true or not, is forbidden. I don't have to tell you Lashon Hara is forbidden. We're not allowed. Okay. We're not allowed to talk about it. We're not allowed to take in the air from somebody else into our ears and listen to it. verboten. What constitutes Lashon Hara? Go look it up. There's tons of books on the subjects. There's websites devoted to the subject, books, magazines, websites, shiurim after many, many classes. Not hard to find out the laws. But there are other types of forbidden speech. Okay. One is flattery. Okay. You're not allowed to flatter someone. You are allowed to give someone a genuine compliment. Sometimes it's important to compliment someone. Somebody's feeling down. They feel, they feel like they don't look good that day. You can point out something truthful and nice. Yeah, but you know what? Your shoes look great. And you always wear such stylish shoes, and it pulls the whole outfit together. I'm being obviously mentioning something trite. But flattering someone, flattering implies that we're trying to control or manipulate them. Misuse of air, not allowed to do it. Don't flatter, okay? Don't write a big letter to somebody that you want something from and flatter them, okay? Again, genuine compliments are important. They can be healthy. They're healthy to give and they're healthy to get. Flattery is not. Okay, next, lying. No lying allowed. Now, there is a halacha that you are allowed to say, it's a question in the Talmud, has a debate. Are all brides beautiful? Are you allowed to say a bride is beautiful? She's not beautiful. So really, a bride is beautiful. She's getting married. It doesn't really matter what she looks like because her neshama is beautiful. Okay, she's about to join her husband and to build a home and a family together. Okay, there's beauty in that. Okay. There is a halacha, you don't have to incriminate yourself. So if somebody asks you, did you steal the cookie from the cookie jar? And you did. You don't want to incriminate yourself. You don't want to embarrass yourself. Unless you're required to answer because that person needs the cookie or whatever. You could say, I don't want to talk about it. Okay, it's not a lie. However, beyond that, falsehoods are falsehoods. Okay, lies are lies. And, you'd be surprised if you're not somebody who has ever, it's just not, you haven't grown up with it. It's not something you think to do, to tell falsehoods. This might seem shocking to you that some people, they rely on lies because of fear. They're afraid they won't be accepted, or they rely on lies to control situations. Sometimes people have had a lot of trauma may have a problem with the truth. It's something that, if that's the case, you got to work on it. Okay. Now, Rebbe Nachman takes a hard line. Rebbe Nachman takes a soft line with a lot of things, but with truth, he takes a hard line. When Rebbe Nachman put together Likutei Eitzos, the advice book, he began with emes ve'emuna, emet ve'emuna, truth. Okay, truth and faith. These two concepts are together. It's not by accident. Why? Because someone who speaks truth has genuine emunah. Okay. Someone who doesn't speak truth, okay, is trying to control something that's not theirs to control. Think about it. This is a flaw. This is an imbalance in air. There's healthy ways of speech and there are unhealthy ways of speech. And it's really problematical because if you don't speak truth, it means you really don't have faith in Hashem. You really don't trust him completely. You feel like, you know what, I have to do Hashem's job for him, because if I tell the truth here, then Hashem's not going to come through for me or whatever. Okay. So if you struggle with this, something you can work on. We all have flaws. We all have imbalances. Many of us have imbalances, all these areas, slight imbalances, larger imbalances. Repairing them helps us heal spiritually and physically. Okay. All right. So air also is the source of two more things. There's a few more things, imbalances I want to speak about. I definitely want to get to fire today. Once again, the Sefirot are going to have to wait. Okay. The one thing I want to speak about is something called Betsanas. It's mockery, mocking, making fun of anything to do with Judaism or religion or Torah or Hashem. Okay. We have to be very careful about this. Sometimes sometimes even a religious comedian can overstep a line, okay? We have to know where that line is and rather err on the side of humorlessness, okay, than cross that line. Doesn't mean you can't have jokes in your life and humor. We all need that. We need to laugh. Even Rebbe Nachman says you should laugh. You should make yourself happy. You should smile. You should be lighthearted. You can even be silly and foolish at times. But when we cross the line in the mockery of Torah or the mitzvot or a religious person, God forbid, we should never, ever do that. Okay. Or community, religious community, or anything like this, we've really crossed a dangerous line. Why? Because it's a mockery of Hashem himself. It's really a form of blasphemy. So that's something also to watch out for. Okay, next, another imbalance is air can be the source of boasting, bragging about yourself, your possessions, your wonderful children, whatever it is. Okay, there's a line where we can talk about ourselves, and then there's a line of bragging. And bragging is, again, it comes from this way of this feeling of needing something from other people, a response from other people in order to feel real, in order to know who we are. This is not healthy, okay? This is not healthy. Joy, yeah, I mentioned joy is the antidote to Earth's depression. Joy is also the antidote to the mindless pleasure seeking of water, is joining your pleasure to Hashem at all times. Air, okay, joy is the antidote to all these kinds of negative speech. Why? Because if you're happy, you're not trying to incite disagreements between people. You're not trying to make people look at you in a certain way. You're not trying to manipulate people. You're not trying to control situations. You're happy. You don't need to fix other people and their response to you. That's it. Yeah, I might not be able to fix that. Okay. All right. Finally, fire. Fire is the highest and the lightest of all the elements. Heat rises, okay, as we know. If you have let's say a tall ceiling in your home, you know that if you climb a ladder, it's hotter near the ceiling than down by the floor. Okay, if you want to stay cool, stay low. Heat rises, fire rises, a flame rises. Now, again, like earth, water, and air, everything has a good possibility of balanced expression in each of us and the potential for imbalance. Okay, so the property of fire, the element, the yesod of fire is an imbalanced, in a balanced way, is a source of striving, the source of action, okay? The source of going up, even spiritually. That's a balanced fire element. The imbalanced fire element is the source of arrogance, someone who feels superior to others for any reason at all, okay? Whether it's looks, whether it's money, whether it's social status, whether it's Torah knowledge, okay? Whether it's Torah knowledge, if you feel superior to other people, this is an imbalance of fire. Rebbe Nachman says that it's extremely important to be humble, to cultivate humility, and to feel superior to no one. Okay, not only those who know more than you, okay, so there's always going to be many people who know more than you and I, not only those whose Torah knowledge is great, it's obvious, you have a great rabbi, obviously, you're going to feel humble and you're not going to feel superior to him, hopefully, because he has so much Torah knowledge, but even your peers, you shouldn't feel superior to them, not in one area or another. You shouldn't see this as a superior and inferior, okay? Nor to people below you, okay? Because who knows what they're superior in, all right? We have no idea. We have no idea what somebody with who's cognitively disabled, or who's down and out, who's struggling financially with their health, we have no idea what they're superior in. We don't know the source of their soul. Okay. And finally, we should be even lower than the lowest, humblest version of ourselves. We should be humble before ourselves. We really need to cultivate this quality. This goes hand in hand with joy. There is a freeing sense when you don't play the superior game. You don't give into that, I'm superior to this one, but that one's superior to me. And then I'm going to activate my jealousy and envy, my water imbalance, and chase after them and try to achieve what they've achieved or take from them. Okay. We don't have to go down that road. All we have to do is understand that each neshama is an olam unto themselves. Each of us is a world unto ourselves. And the whole world plays a superior inferior game. And we don't have to buy into it. Jews are the original opt-out people. We're the ones who say we're not going to buy into it. We're not going to buy into any of this stuff, especially this, because all it does is it breaks up relationships. It damages not only our relationships with other people, our own personal relationship with ourselves, because we can't be honest. They're always striving for superiority. It damages our relationship with Hashem as well. Okay. Fire also is the source of anger. Okay. This I always tell you, I've worked very hard on it. I'm not perfect, but I've really worked hard on my temper. I'm a gingy. I have a hot temper. I've worked on it. Okay, very much so. And Baruch Hashem, not there, but every year I get better and better. Thank you, Hashem. If I can get over my temper, you can get over yours. Okay, anger is idol worship. Chazal tell us. Rabbi Nachman reminds us. Anger is idol worship. Okay. Righteous anger is the question I always get. Well, whoa, what if I'm righteously justified anger 99.99999 times out of 100? Okay. Anger is not justified. It's just not. It's really not. We're kidding ourselves if we think the emotion and the expression of anger is justified. Even when something's very wrong in the world the way it is now, we see the complete breakdown of sanity in the world and the evil that's being done. The medical malpractice, everything, the political malpractice, everything that's being done, the corruption, the breakdown of nations, the destruction of innocent life. Can we feel angry? Well, I can't say we can't feel angry, but what I can say is take that energy and use it and put it towards prayer. Praying with hope and again with joy, which is the antidote. Once again, it's the antidote to anger. To turn to tefillah and say, Hashem, look at this world. It's going to implode. It's so meshuggah. Hashem, I have so much hope in you. So much faith and trust in you. I'm turning with you with joy because even the little corner of my life that hasn't imploded, even the little drop of my life or the corner of my block or the corner of my country that seems okay, I'm so grateful and joyful for it. I'm really happy for it, Hashem. Hashem, please fix the rest of the world. That's a good use of anger. Okay, it's a pretty good use of anger. Anger and arrogance combined lead to, says Rabbi Chaim Vital, in short, they lead to the desire for power and honor. Okay, those are not synonymous. Okay, power, gevura, strength is to control everything in one's life and everybody else's life, to control others, and honor, kavod, is the desire to have others reflect back to us an image that really isn't earned, because all kavod belongs to Hashem. All honor belongs to Hashem. That's a whole other lesson. Rabbi Nachman has a few lessons on that. So the idea to rectify, and we have, again, all of these have good sides. All these yesodot, all these elements have good sides when they're balanced, when they're healthy. We need all of them. They're all part of life. But they all have the potential for great imbalance and even destruction. Now, there are many antidotes. There are many ways to work on them. And again, as we go through, this is just an introduction, as we go through the different body parts and the spiritual connections and so on, we'll talk more about these. But the idea is the overarching element is this concept of the tzaddik. It's a source to rectify all of these. And we need to learn from the tzaddikim about, we need to have a connection with our tzaddikim about how to heal. And we also need it very, very importantly, this idea of rectifying everything with the main advice that Rebbe Nachman gives us here, which is simcha, joy, happiness. Okay? Happiness is something we choose. It seems impossible if you're suffering. And I wouldn't say to someone else who was suffering, just be happy. No, I would go, I'd give them a hug. I would try to help them materially. I would try to help them spiritually. I would do my best to learn with them, to pick them up, to give them moments of pleasure, give them their favorite chocolate dessert, whatever it is. Okay. When it comes to someone else, we shouldn't be, well, you just need to be happy. No. But when it comes to ourselves, we need to learn this method, this technique for ourselves. We need, as Rebbe Nachman says specifically, to force ourselves to be happy. That's where all physical and mental and spiritual healings begin. This forcing, no matter what's going on, grab moments of happiness, cultivate happiness, no matter what is going on. Will you be able to do it all the time? No, because you're human and you're not perfect. Okay, although I can say I do know some people that just blow my mind. No matter what's going on, even in the moment of intense anxiety, fear, depression, they can, in the moment, grab themselves by the scruff of their own neck and say, I'm going to be happy, I'm going to be happy. And they make that transition. So if you're happy, relatively speaking, right now, and nothing's particularly difficult, work on cultivating more happiness. Strengthen yourself. Teach yourself what happiness feels like. Talk about it with Hashem and Bodhidu. Hashem, I feel happy right now. Let me remember this feeling. Let me imprint this feeling on my psyche so that when I'm not feeling happy, I can say, but I know what it feels like. So I'm going to remember it. I'm going to try to implant it. And if you're not feeling happy right now, pick yourself up in any way you can. Cry out to Hashem and ask him to help you plant joy in your life. Okay. So we've done an overview, very rough, of the four elements, how they affect us, mind, body, and soul. Are there any questions or comments? You can unmute yourselves. And also remember that all the names that were lifted, I didn't say them, but I kept in mind that all those names that you wrote down in the chat were for Refuah Shlema today. Please, Hashem, all the learning should be for Refuah Shlema. Okay. Any questions or comments, you can put them in chat or you can unmute yourself. No? Okay. I know what ends up happening is that I get a lot of texts and emails after the class. The questions come to you. That's fine as well. Feel free to text then. I'm going to give you my number. I'm going to type it in right here in the chat for you. All right, everybody. So I'm going to end this recording and I'll tell you about tomorrow.